Kia ora, Internet. This is Auckland Star Wars, and Uncle Cranky is Uncle Cranky. Our current name at the moment is Mon Calamari, and Mon is the origin story for that is Mon, apostrophe M-O-N, is short for the Scottish way that the Scottish say, come on, they go Mon. And Calamari is the decipher district name for New Zealand and Australia. So what I'm saying is, come on, Kiwis, or the way the Scottish go, Mon Calamari. So introducing the group, there's a wide range of where people started in Star Wars. Uncle Cranky is one of the new people and our facilitator. Stoves is a new player too as well. So their perspectives are going to be really important too, because they're going to discuss about how they find the game. Not like me and Big Pete, Big Pete's old school, I'm mid school. And Big Pete's been playing from the beginning, 95, and I joined up in 99 with Special Edition. So that's our introduction. And shout out to SWCCGPC and the lads on game. This is us. So, yeah. Here we go with the conversation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I could sort of take over the conversation a little bit, I think the best place to start, especially for myself and Rovor, is going to be pedigree. So for me, my CCG pedigree, I started, the first CCG I ever played was actually Yu-Gi-Oh! Back in 06.
Oh, wow. Oh, so you're only just recent, really? Cool.
Yeah.
You're quite a bit younger than us.
Well, I'm from country Australia. Like there's almost nothing in terms of gaming out there when I was coming up. But I started with, personally, I started with Yu-Gi-Oh! Started down I guess the Janklord path. Claim to fame for Yu-Gi-Oh! I got ejected from a online Yu-Gi-Oh! Community for going 50-4 in the course of a week with jank against meta decks. Moved on to Marvel's Versus system. Had a lot of fun with that.
That's an excellent game. I wish I could have played that game.
Oh, it's fabulous. But I think Upper Deck made the mistake of putting money into it. As soon as they took the money out of the tournament scene, the game died on the vine, like almost immediately.
Yes.
After Versus system came, for me, was Raw Deal, or to give it its full name, WWE Raw Deal. So as
which borrowed the Star Wars mechanic, you think?
In a manner of speaking, to a certain extent, yeah. Like you did damage it. You took damage in that game by milling your decks, so it was very similar to Force Drain. Sort of became the nemesis of the Auckland scene in that game, to the point where every time we had a tournament, every deck was built to try and built to try and counter mine. and then sort of.
So in other words, you're saying you're a pretty sharp card player.
I mean, when I can brute force it. I mean, the deck I became that everyone hated in Raw Deal was so Raw Deal is also very similar to Star Wars in that it has what's called the pre-match phase. So you would play cards from a special pre-match deck that would affect the outcome of when you start the game. The wrestler I was playing, Mr. Kennedy, said you cannot play pre-match cards if they are not superstar specific. Yeah. So if they're not unique to your character, you can't play it. And then I just sit there and strip your hand out. And then I play cards that mean, so you've got to reduce hand size. You then have to. I played what are called chain maneuvers in that game, and to reverse a chain maneuver. So counter spells in Raw Deal are called reversals. You had to discard 2 cards from hand, then play the reversal. So I'd sit there, strip your hand out. You got 2 cards in hand. I play, and I just sit there and roll over you.
I remember giving the game a shot, but I found it hard to, because it was a totally new thing to me. I was familiar with the stuff and mechanics, so that's what I liked about the game.
I remember lending you decks, and you did really well for like first time.
Because it's my Star Wars experience, I thought.
Yeah, that's really translatable. But there was sort of there was 2 circles in Raw Deal. So there was the heavy metal boys. Like we sort of picked up a group of a heavy metal band as a player base. The heavy metal boys were really canny. Every deck I built always on the mind because I knew they weren't playing around. And then it was.
And you don't think they had any previous experience, right?
They knew the game coming in, like they weren't
they
ignorant.
Magic players or something like that.
Possibly.
Oh, okay.
I never asked. But yeah, the heavy metal boys were definite linchpins in that meta. And then the card store boys were sort of, they played their favorite wrestlers, which meant they weren't
the Vagabond boys.
Yeah. After Raw Deal for me came Universal Fighting System, which is where I met Tarkin.
Yeah, or Chris.
Chris, yeah.
Chris Tarkin, either or. Christopher Tarkin, but yeah, I love that game. That was an excellent game. They too borrowed the Destiny mechanic of Decipher.
Yeah.
What did they call it? Control checks.
Control checks. Right? Yeah. And I became sort of known for the the deck I became known for there was Zangief. Throw, damage,
yes.
Put the momentum, damage.
Zangief, Calzim, God.
I still feel bad about that because it was the ultimate matchup. It was the deck full of questions against the deck full of answers.
No, I should have killed you, basically.
That's what I mean. Like your deck just coughed up. Your deck coughed up nothing. What can I do?
But not just with that game. It coughed up the whole game because I wasn't supposed to play it. It's my best design ever, best deck design I ever made. So I'm very proud of it. I just wish I didn't have to drive it. Didn't have to drive it that day because it would have done well if Mike Bailey had to drive it. But anyhow.
Yeah. Well, I remember I remember we did the rematch and you knocked me out in about 3 turns. It's like, yeah, that's what I was expecting to happen on the day. But as we all know,
I love that game. Absolutely love that game.
But as we all know, sometimes deck says no.
Yeah, true. And I'm not particularly a strong player on the table, nor online. But my thing is deck design, really. That's what I've always said.
Yep.
But I'm not really particularly strong over the table player.
And then,
as Americans will tell you later.
I mean, as far as UFS goes, the Americans would have shit if they saw our meta. I think they did. Because they were playing all day.
They did, because one of our boys made top 8 in the World Championships, so we had a say.
Yeah, and I mean, from memory,
and we were all about the rush meta, and they were about controls, and we were rush.
That's what I mean. America go slow, Auckland go fast.
Yes, absolutely.
And then, so those are my major games. But along the way, I dabbled. I play a lot of Magic now. I play a lot of Legends of Runeterra.
That old peanut, that old chestnut.
Yeah, Magic. The game for lawyers.
Still around. Because a lot of my old friends have gone back to it. That's what surprises me. Ex-UFS, ex whatever game I played, they've all gone back to it.
There have been 2 main phenomena that have reinvigorated the Magic scene and maybe set it on a bad path. As you mentioned, the first one, Commander. the format is wildly popular.
Yes, absolutely.
The other big thing that's helped Magic gain a resurgence has actually been a program called Magic the Gathering Arena. So Arena is
who my commander was?
Who's that?
That was him.
Oh, I forgot there was Street Fighter and Magic.
Shout out to Coco Lima. He sent me a commander deck and it tells him as the commander.
I'm just pulling up the card now.
Magic, yeah, I think.
Green White Selesnya. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Tobe.
Everything, it's in front of everything is crossing over with everything.
Well, I mean,
yeah. Well,
the most recent
conversations. We're gonna branch.
But I mean, Magic cards are crossing over with everything. I think Magic cards, like my Magic card story is not a story. It's that I was like the only kid in my high school class who didn't play Magic because my parents were not didn't want me to for religious rather than economic reasons in this case. So I played a bit of Magic in high school and looked at the cards, but I didn't play. And I think it's interesting to look at the early Magic is roughly contemporary with Decipher Star Wars, but wildly different. I think they show I don't know card games as well as you guys in their full variety. But I think one of the really interesting things about Star Wars is that it shows just a very, very different kind of way of organizing and designing a card game to Magic, which has become the juggernaut, or which is the reference point that everything else has to look at since the 2000s, since the 1990s.
Well, I think the main thing from my end, at least, is when I got into card games, one of the main card shop in Auckland was called Vagabonds. Still is the main card shop in Auckland. At the time I got into card...
The villain is card crazy. Shout out Lawrence, you prick.
But when I got into card games, the main guy that was working at Vagabonds was a bloke called Ian Kenderdine. Chris might be familiar. I don't know if Pete may be.
Awesome man. Very awesome. Linchpin of the scene.
Ian, every new card game that come out, Ian would play it and he'd get incredibly passionate about some of certain card games. Raw deal. Ian's a big wrestling fan. He was training to be a wrestler at one point, got injured, become a referee.
Yeah, I think he wrestled with my stepson.
But Ian's one of those people, his passion is contagious. Like you can't help but get caught up in it. And that's how
important figure in the scene, definitely. Yeah.
And that's how I got involved in a lot of card games like UFS, like Versus System, like the Spoils. I got the Spoils. That's a sad story for another time. That was a game that really could have taken off in Auckland if it wasn't for Magic players. Short story.
Auckland, Aotearoa, or New Zealand? I don't think we've explained that, but I'm sure our current academic will expand more into that.
Yeah, Aotearoa, yeah. But yeah, the short story of the Spoils is that we had a few people start picking it up. We had a tournament that was explicitly, the tournament was called Beginners Tournament. For people to come, maybe you've got a starter deck, maybe you've got a slightly modified starter deck. No, screw that. One of the bigger players in the Magic scene turned up with a top 8 deck from the last tournament. Guess who won? It's like, bro, I understand. Like, do what you got to do to win, but read the room. Like, if it's advertised as a beginners tournament, don't turn up with the top 8 deck.
Oh, okay.
I think it's interesting
But people
how
do that all the time.
Yeah.
What's wrong with playing net decks or top 8? I mean, what's the issue with that? Yes, there might be plagiarism and people not giving credit to certain players, inventors of the deck. People try to, because by saying nothing, you're implying that it's your deck, not your deck, even though
there's
an IP debate and argument.
Absolutely nothing wrong with turning up to a net deck with a net deck. If the tournament's not specifically named a beginner tournament.
Okay, fair call.
Yeah. Like if we were doing like Auckland regionals, absolutely turn up.
That's what gamers are like. They tend to push the edge like that. We all know there's those sorts of gamers, those sad dudes that that's gaming. Not a very nice part of it, but yeah. Yeah, I know people like that.
Yeah. But that is what it is. Like that's just how the Magic scene is in Auckland, like win at all costs, and I fully respect that and I'm fully on board with it, but read the room.
And I think it's interesting that you were talking before about the guy at Vagabond who shared his enthusiasm widely with the community. And I think it's interesting that these games which revolve around imagining a fighting tournament work quite well as card games. So I think one of the things I've been thinking about in relation to Star Wars as well is the match the fit of theme with mechanics. And this is like an old gigantic debate in board gaming, and it's sort of a it hangs over a lot of different a lot of gaming in general. But one of the things that really strikes me about Star Wars is the way in which, in this kind of early phase of CCGs, there's a commitment to the kind of story arcs and like a very fine-grained, almost quotation of the movies and to a certain extent other Star Wars properties going on as part of the game, and an attempt to match these events in the movies, events and quotations from the movies with mechanics is, I think, really interesting. It gives rise to both some of the really kind of powerful and lasting advantages of the game, or kind of interesting things about the game, and also maybe some of the clunkier bits of the game as well.
Yeah,
knowledge is power.
I found that as well. Even going through some of the what do they call the objectives? Is that what?
Yeah, yeah.
Like some of the objectives are really flavorful. Yeah, they're really flavorful. Like there is good in him, and bring him before me as examples. Like
the purple cards saved the game, because otherwise, if it wasn't for special edition and objective cards, the game would have died.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yes,
because that's what I believe in. Yes, Big Pete.
Yes, when I first started back in the day, I was playing the Viper's Star Trek, and then crossed over onto Star Wars. But I had a choice: Star Wars Magic, out the artwork, and Star Wars. I just went with Star Wars. Yeah, much more enjoyable game.
Yeah, but aren't you a freak for the franchise anyway? Because you collect a heavy collector of the franchise. So I remember the first time I met you. That was in '99, so that's when the Auckland Star Wars community really started to happen. Is when the Heroes for Sales boys got together and I got together, and you were trying to complete your Star Wars sets, and you had these cute little notes that had your cute little writing that were all your missing cards. Because have you guys got this? Have you guys got that? And that's how I first met you, because that's when I knew, oh my God, this group was a freak of Star Wars. So there were other freaks in there, like heavy collectors of all things Star Wars. They love the franchise, as you should if that's big deal to you. But Big Pete was one of the freaks. Paul Monk was the other freak, and Big Aaron was the other freak as well. Heavy collectors. But yeah, that's my little story about how I first met Big Pete. But I initially met Big Pete years before. So we met in Star Wars wise, we met in '99, but we actually met at Pendragon Games in '93, and that was playing Games Workshop stuff. He was playing Epic, and I was playing Warhammer Fantasy Battle. So, but we ended up coming full circle and becoming tight with the rest of the Star Wars group as a entity group of Star Wars players that branched out into another group, which was House Street, which is a gaming think tank, and we've all remained friends. Well, a gaming think tank that ended up being a Sunday mad soccer playing foodless. There's a lot of history with our group and the Star Wars community, so we're here to talk about it today. And yeah,
I like the idea
that's how I first came
of
Big Pete.
House Street gaming think tank. That's actually quite a
Well, I
Because
mean,
it was, because some of the finest minds in New Zealand were part of House Street. Not only gaming, but academics and life. Wicked group of people, and bonds that still remain strong today. And I guess that's what the underlying theme is about friendships and why bonds are so strong between gamers, even more than regular folk. Gaming bonds and gaming friendships are more than just solid. It always freaked me out. It's just how loyal each other are to each other. Although it's a homosocial institution, but don't get it wrong. Don't get it twisted, though, boys. It's a good thing.
yeah, uh, yeah, definitely some great minds in that little flat. It'd be always interesting. We deck tech for a while, and then we'd
Because you did Game of Thrones, which also borrowed the cipher mechanic, right? That's what you said was the closest you found to Star Wars.
yeah.
Can you can you delve on that a wee bit?
So the way Game of Thrones works, and Game of Thrones has actually ruined me for CCGs because of the way it works. So Game of Thrones, you buy a starter set. The starter set has a predefined, like if you buy three starter set, the idea is you buy three starter sets because a play set is three, and you'll have three of every card in the starter set. Then after the starter set, there is chapter packs, which is 3 copies each of 7 cards, and those 7 cards are defined. So you will always get the same cards from the same chapter pack. And then there are house packs, because there's the 7 main houses and the Night's Watch. So those are all the factions you can play. And they each got a faction pack, which is again is 3 copies each of a set amount of cards. And that's why it's Fantasy Flight called it a living card game, and it's ruined me for.
oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a new term. I never really heard that term before.
Yeah, so Game of Thrones is not about who's got the best bank account, who can buy the rare cards, who can amass the rare cards. It's about the best deck builder wins on the day, because everyone's got the same access to the same cards.
It's a comparison you can make with Star Wars. That's sort of like there'll be an argument for some that it's got the most Palpatines or the Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight. It's that sort of thing as well. You know what I mean? As well, I get that. Deck building is the way to go. Yes.
So the way the turns are structured, you've got a 7-card plot deck. Now, plot cards determine how much gold you have for the turn, your initiative, so who acts first, your claim, which is based on which is how good your so claim is basically when you win a combat, you do thing, and that's based on claim. And it also determines your end of turn hand size. So a plot card might be, and plot cards also have an effect that'll be either be in play for the turn or go off automatically. So the example is Valar Morghulis, all men must die. It is you get 2 gold for the turn, 0 initiative, 0 claim, 4 end of turn hand size, and the effect is kill all characters. It's a board wipe, which is why it's got shit rest of the stats, because it's a board wipe.
Sounds interesting.
So you play your plot card, you generate gold. So your gold will be generated from your plot card, plus you'll have a number of bonuses in play. You go into a marshalling phase, which is summoning, playing actions, and then characters will have will have a strength, and between 1 and 3 challenge icons. Military, deception, deception? No, military. I can't remember what the green one's called, but there's sort of one representing military might, one representing that's what it's called, intrigue and power. So the challenge icons a character card has indicates the kind of attacks they can do. So, and this is where claim comes into play. So you can do up to 3 challenges per turn: 1 military, 1 intrigue, 1 power. If you win a military challenge as an attacker, your opponent kills characters they control up to your claim. So if you've got 1 claim, they kill 1 character. Intrigue challenge: if you win an intrigue challenge as an attacker, the person you're challenging discards cards equal to your claim. If you win a power challenge, you receive power, which is victory points, equal to your claim. So, and then it's 15 power to win. So it's a very tricky, and it's the game's actually built for multiplayer, and I'm investigating ways to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that there. I don't want to incriminate myself so much, but it's
you guys wish there was an element of that in Star Wars?
I wish Star Wars was more comprehensible.
Multi-platform in Star Wars, yeah.
I
multiplayer. You know?
I don't think Star Wars lends itself to multiplayer with the light dark dichotomy.
Yeah, doesn't.
Oh, true that. Well, I thought I'd read something about there as a format.
I think one of its strengths is that it captures something about the kind of plot rhythm of Star Wars as fiction. I'm not quite sure exactly why that is. It's a very broad claim I'm making, but I think you could maybe make it a team game somehow, but I think you have to have a binary there.
I think that's what the format is team format. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Star Wars in that way. I just know the one-on-one game, but it's just what I've read over the years, and that's how I've managed to. Because there was between 2003 when the Auckland Star Wars group stopped playing and till now, which is 2024 September, nobody played until I was sort of encouraged by using my old connections with old friends and encourage new players to play and the old players to restart again. And luckily, we were able to get a bunch of guys to start playing again. So that's how we ended up here, and we just wanted to talk about it. Shout out Book Club, because their podcast was really good. So we've sort of been inspired by them, and with the encouragement of shout out Dan T of this WCCG and Dead Body and Eddie's and Fast Eddie. I'll call him Fast Eddie because I think he's got a Eastern European surname, even though he doesn't look Eastern European. But shout out you guys. You guys inspired us to get back into it, or for me to get back into it. And I always made myself a promise when I stopped playing the card game, because that was my most favorite card game, Star Wars. I got a passion for it, and I never my interest never waned, even though I didn't play, because I kept in touch with the virtual sets, kept in touch with the world championships, knew all the old players were, know who the personalities are in the Star Wars community. Maybe not so much the guys in my group knew that, but I did, and maybe a couple of other guys. But yeah, that's how we find. That's why you find us in front of your screens now talking about Star Wars. How do we find playing it? I know there are issues because you guys are smart guys. So me and Big P, you won't find us having a problem with it because we are fanatical fans of it. But I'm interested to hear what you guys got to say about issues you may have with Star Wars since Uncle Cranky and Rover just started to learn the game. Yeah. Rover in particularly, but
I think there's something about. I'm really interested in the history of the game, because there is something about. At some point, they clearly made the decision never to remove cards from the game, and as a result, you've got this kind of accretion of not errata, but cards that serve as errata. Like there are so many cards I've played now which say something about neighboring leads, and I'd never seen the card that neighboring leads played, and so I actually the other day in preparation I looked it up, and it was like, yeah, that kind of fundamentally changes how the game works. I can see why later on they added these cards that cancel it, but it's really confusing for a beginner.
Yeah.
So I think Big Pete's perspective in particular will be interesting on this. As someone who played from the beginning and saw that kind of the game evolve in those early years, I think once you kind of get over, I think the challenge that creates for beginners is there's so much text and so many symbols. Only a fraction of, or only a subset of those are really important, but there's a lot of noise to get through to get to what is really important. Once you do, I think the game is, it's clunky, but it's elegant. That doesn't really make, that sounds like a bit of a paradox, but I think that's kind of what I settled on. The in play, there are a lot of things that are potentially distracting, but the whole system of how the cards move around, the different kinds of piles, the kind of the way the rhythm of the games changes over time is actually really interesting. You don't necessarily get more powerful as you go along, because there are new constraints on you towards the end of the game because of the kind of the way that cards are the resource for everything. So yeah, I think
it's a high learning curve.
And I think, GIMP is great. I think GIMP is a good piece of software, but it's not easy for learners. No. And the game isn't easy for learners. I think that's the big challenge coming into it in 2025, as someone who maybe saw a couple of the cards, or 2024, I guess, as someone who saw a couple of the cards in, I don't know if I ever saw anyone playing it, but I remember seeing my kids at school and cards. I was like, "Ooh, that's cool! A Star Wars game like Magic." But I never. I was kind of regretted not trying it out. But yeah, it's not the easiest learn a game. And I think that the fact that it's supported by a group of volunteers who have a lot of things on there to
That's the
deal
most
with.
amazing thing. Shout out
Yeah.
Scott Lindgren.
Those.
It's really impressive, but it's hard. It's hard to get on board. It's understandable why it's so hard to introduce new players to the game. You have to play it to really get it, I think, and that's kind of that's the main thing.
Big Pete would have seen the change of the rules and how much the game changed because he was there from the beginning. There was quite a few in the beginning. Were there early tournaments, Big Pete?
No.
Before our tournament started. So your first experience with tournament was when we started in '99.
Yeah. Before then, I was just me and my friend who was playing.
Yeah, because I'll tell you a story about how the Auckland community started in '99. So what it was me and my old friend English Ben. We decided on a card game we were going to learn to play, and that ended up being Star Wars CCG, right? So we ended up buying 4 boxes of special edition. So we were playing Jabba's Palace themed decks using the base cards from whatever we collected from, and a few bits and pieces that we bought along the way. So we played, friends being friends, very competitive. He won, I won a game, he won a game, but we played a decider, and he won that game. So we're very competitive. But he didn't give me a chance to. He didn't give me the chance to get the win back. He went, meh. I don't feel like playing. I think I'll just call it a night. And I thought to myself, this dude's going to hold me hostage. I'm going to be subject to his whims of when he's playing Star Wars. And I really like this game. I want to play it a lot. So I needed to find the Star Wars guys. And I mentioned the guy before who owned the store, Card Crazy, and he wasn't keen on players meeting each other because that meant that his cards didn't get bought in the store, and we would just trade between ourselves and not cost ourselves any money at all because we could trade. Like gamers being gamers, that's what we ended up doing. So I had to find the Auckland group, but I found the Auckland players who are ex-Pendragon boys playing Star Wars. There's a group of about 4 or 5 of them, and Big P. And they were the ones that were playing regularly at the time. And I found them at Heroes for Sale in 1999. And I organized that group into playing more regularly at Heroes for Sale. And then I started to organize tournaments. So I had to go and learn how to do it online. And then that's how we started. And we started off with about, say, at least 6 of us and a couple of old friends. And we mushroomed into about 8 or 12 players that played regularly for about a good 3 or 4 years until we stopped playing around about 2003. So that overall is how the Auckland Star Wars scene started between 99 and 2003. There were other players playing. There was a clique in Hamilton, which is a big city of New Zealand, and another clique in Otago University. So and another group in the capital, Wellington. So there were small groups of pockets of players in New Zealand in those 3 cities, but we never really got to meet those players, just very rarely. But when we did, there was the whole regionalism thing, and that's always a hilarious affair. All the dodgy corruption that goes on and the gamesmanship, hilarious. But that's human nature, that's human behavior too. But yeah, that's just a brief on how Mon Calamari came about.
But
Here in New Zealand.
I mean, I guess just to build on Toby's comments, Pete, how in just sort of in your own estimation, like from because you sound like you've been playing from the release of the game till current. Like, how is the power creep? How has the game evolved? Like, just sort of give us the rough timeline.
As the game came along, yeah. Who are you asking, Toby or Big Pete or both?
Pete, Pete. Like, I was sort of building on Toby's comments as a new player. Like,
that's what I thought you were asking. Oh yeah, it was very hard getting into the game, just learning those rules straight off the bat. Me and one other friend suffered badly at that. Just remembering all these tiny little rules.
It's not the strongest part of our game, is it, Big Pete? Both me and you included. We've sort of learned along the way, haven't we? Because an old friend of ours, Colin Hunter, shout out CV Hunter, he always said his main premise was knowledge is power. So knowing all the rules, all the symbols, everything was pretty much you gave yourself an advantage, and he was right. But we're not particularly huge in the rules. I still find myself asking questions all the time on GEM and on the SWCCGBC forums. But I don't know how Big Pete found it, but he would see the power creep. The game became more powerful, slicker, and faster, obviously, as the game came along. But I don't know. Did you enjoy it more when they changed it, when the objectives came around?
Yeah. You could flavor your deck so much better. Yeah. Definitely. You got your cards out faster. Yeah, make for a quicker game so you could have more games.
So what would you say is your favorite all-time decks that you've played, the decks that you've really enjoyed? Well, what particular decks do you favor? Because you're the typical quirky, off-meta player that catches out the net deckers all the time with your quirkiness, which happens quite often, with off-meta decks. So I found that you've called me out a few times with your quirky decks in the past.
Yeah, I like my
and recent. What was that?
Yeah, I do like my indoor ops. I like my little scout troopers.
That's a cool gig. I'm gonna have to ask you advice on that deck. That's a really cool deck, and I think you do it really well with the cool speeder bikes, which I think is quite a popular way to go with indoor ops. And so we play Classic No V. That's what our group, when we returned back in 24 September, we picked up the Classic No V format. So we've been heavily influenced by the top 8 and, well, because you've got to have a starting point. So I encourage all the guys to learn to play off the net decks or the sample decks that are on game. And quite a few of them are really good as well.
There also seems to be there also seems to be quite a large range of sample decks on GAM, which I appreciate.
For all the different formats, yeah, but our format is Classic No V at the moment.
Even Classic No V, there's quite a good range of decks already preloaded into GAM.
Yeah, because I like that ISB deck and that hidden base deck. They are good, solid learning decks, which quite a few of the players in our group I've learned to play off as well. So shout out to the creators of those decks.
Absolutely.
I think what I really like about Big Pete's decks, that I've played it, I've really played a couple of times, but what I really like that Big Pete does the some of us, I think the decks that are online, the sample decks, don't do so much, is like a commitment to being a good deck that still like fits the theme of a movie or of the objective. And I think you know, that's really important, and I think that's really inspiring to me as my first faltering steps towards building a couple of decks is that how can I make something that, like, there is a overwhelming number of games of all kinds in the world, and I'm playing this one because of Chris. That's um, you know, ultimately this is about keeping in touch with people and meeting people. But I also like Star Wars, so it's a sort of a there's a I, the choice to play a Star Wars game. I want to make I want it to feel like Star Wars, and when you play Big Pete's sticks, they're coherent. They feel like something about the fiction of Star Wars, and you feel like you're thinking about and working with the source material. I think that's really
Yeah.
cool, and I think it's really important. I think, and obviously the objectives were the step that really helped shape that. But yeah.
So are you saying that you don't? Are you saying that you don't enjoy my meta whore wave?
Oh, I think your decks are always very interesting too, but in ways that completely surprise me.
But they're not my decks. They're the ideas of others.
Right.
Of course, I have to give credit to that. I learn from the best deck designers that are available from the net. But that's how I learn the game, is through their influence, through their ideas. But absolutely agree with you about Big Pete, because his decks are annoying and catch me out quite often, as your decks have as well, with your interpretation of play. You call me out of beauty a few times. It's frustrating playing you two.
Yeah. The
Because I'm
very sorry.
by my meta play.
Invested in the game.
the only time I actually played Big Pete, it didn't go well because I was playing Bring Him Before Me,
Issue with the Hoth power generator.
and I'm not even mad with it. Like,
only trying to support the lore, because that's what I love about Star Wars and Decipher, because they support the lore by providing the rules and the bits and pieces that support what historically happened during the game.
but
and yes, it's huge, and yes, it's a high learning curve, and
it's just that situation where
necessary, but it is necessary. That's what gives the detail to the game. My love for that game, because I support it.
I'm not mad at it. Like, it's very flavorful. It just randomly hoses Bring Him Before Me because Vader has to land so far away and walk through the gauntlet to pick up Luke, and then I realize, oh,
the Ice Storm, god damn it!
I don't think I got that far.
And then I realized,
you Ice Storm me when I went down with ISB. You Ice Storm me, and I went, that's it. But
these are very interesting.
It's just the nature of CCGs. They're always, like, no matter what deck you build, there'll always be the one deck that just randomly hoses it. And it just happened to be the forbidden matchup, like Bring Him Before Me, not versus Hoth. Well, get your walking shoes on, Vader. You got a fucking job to do.
Yeah, because is there any particular decks that you enjoy playing, Uncle Cranky? Or you just generally didn't enjoy playing? Because I guess you're being sort of like my heartbreak, really.
Yeah.
You haven't really picked up on it. I guess you're my heartbreak story, and it makes me sad when an old friend can't get with what I love, and I always find that disappointing. But I understand it.
Yeah,
the game demands a lot out of you.
Yeah, I sort of bounced off it a couple of times, and I don't know. It's hard to find. Well, I mean, getting into the new player experience, I guess it's hard to have a favorite deck when the first deck I tried was Black Sun, the Black Sun thing. I can't remember the name of it.
Excellent.
I'm still trying to work out how that works, really. Yeah, it's not an easy one. I'll have to ask some of the more senior players on
and then
GIMP about how that rolls. I still don't get it.
And then the light side player goes, well, here's Luke Jedi Knight. Devote all of your resources to dealing with him. And then
he's a bit like that.
And then I tried what you said. And Darkseid goes, here's the Executor. Devote all your resources to dealing with it.
I think you're just irrationally afraid of Executor. It can be intimidating, but our pivot takes care of that monstrosity, no problem, as people tell you. She hasn't crap. Did you tell me, Toby?
I don't think I managed it.
No, you landing clawed me and then beat me up.
Yeah, that was landing claw. Yeah, landing claw.
That was a beauty. Landing claw.
But I think one of the going back to what Uncle Cracky was saying, one of the challenges that new players is that you're playing a match is quite a lot of time, and then it is a bit demoralizing to play and then be completely caught out by something you don't know about. And over time, that it requires a lot of research and experience to do the catching out in a way, like the landing claw thing. And I think that's a cool thing about the game. It is about sort of reversals of fortunes and traps and kind of tricks. But then if you don't know all the tricks, you're one trick away from a bit of disappointment.
Yeah. Well, it's just my perception of the game is it's basically won by there are a lot of what I call blowout cards. Like, you slam Luke Jedi Knight, and then your opponent has to spend all their resources dealing with Luke, or Executor, or
not,
or what's that?
Yeah,
what's that mercenary thing? That one mercenary Darkseid cut space fighter that strips away all their power at that site.
You mean the what's his name? In what's we call it? Sorry.
Don't worry, I'm googling it.
There's a light side combo of what's his name in Outrider.
Yeah, that Dash Randar and Outrider, but there's a Darkseid mercenary starfighter that does the same thing with no pilot.
Oh, Zuckuss.
Zuckuss, that's the bastard. That's the bastard.
Zuckuss is king, man.
But
Zuckuss is king. Oh my god, that card has saved my life so many times.
But
that in battle plan and battle order.
But from my perspective, there are so many cards like that where you can only deal with it by throwing resources at it. And I get the destiny check thing, and I get you can stack your force deck and track a high destiny check through your deck. But
if you have enough ability, yeah. But the combo for that one is all wings, Darklighter Spin, get around Zuckuss. I think that's a traditional way of getting around Zuckuss, because his destiny your destiny draws a 0, but by replacing the destiny with a maneuver number, so you're not drawing a destiny, you're using your maneuver number as your destiny number. That's a traditional way of getting it. But I'm sure there are plenty of ways, but we're only noobs, still trying to work our way around the game. So, yeah, but Zuckuss is king. I love that card.
And I think
staple of most decks.
Yeah, and as I look at more decks that I online, and I start seeing the same names pop up,
Yeah,
like
staples.
almost every light side deck has Luke Jedi Knight because it's just a nightmare to deal with.
Yeah.
And Corn Horn, which is interesting. But once I got screwed by Corn Horn, I realized why everyone has them.
Hmm.
But is that a crime though to have the staple cards in there? Because
Well, I mean, I guess going back to the card games I played, if a card in Yu-Gi-Oh was that widely played, it got banned.
yeah, well, Star Wars doesn't really ban cards; they
Yeah.
might errata them or provide magic bullets. But I appreciate that because
I think it does keep the it does keep things changing. I think that if people start using a lot of a certain tactic or a certain combo, the counter to that emerges, and I imagine there's a rhythm to the back and forth of deck building. Although I haven't been around long enough to see.
I mean,
that.
there's definitely conventions of play, as you say.
It's the thing, we're still only in Classic V. There's no V. There's all those virtual cards we haven't looked at. And it's what,
And the shields.
Yeah, that's why we're doing Classic No V, because I think we're dealing with about a third of the database. If we played open, then you're dealing with another 2/3 again. I think that's my estimate. At least with Classic No V, we're just dealing with about a third of the card base. And that was what I chose Classic No V because the tournament top 8 was just up. And it was around about the period that I enjoyed playing. That was around about before we stopped playing as a group in 2003. That was around about what we were playing. But I think that period, Classic No V, is the 2001 2000 period. And everybody just became disillusioned with the virtual cards, and our decks became too fast and too sleek. And three powerful players coming into the group and wiping the floor off all of us. It killed the group and the community, but it didn't stop me. I kept in touch with the game for a good 20 years just by watching the World Championships and keeping up with the virtual sets. So I never lost my love for the game, and I'm so glad that I'm again playing Star Wars with old friends and recent friends. So I'm grateful for that.
And I mean, like I say, I bounce off the game. Like I'm not ruling out trying it again. But I think the other big problem is
I think we miss out that you're not involved.
I think the other big problem is I'm a very slow, grindy, control-oriented player, which doesn't really.
Well, you described half of the Star Wars playing population.
Well, that Black Sun that Black Sun deck I was playing is intended to be a control deck.
Yes, apparently.
Like
I still don't get it. I need to work it out.
Well,
I'll be hitting the Game Boys up for advice, and so I can get it. Well, I don't even get what's the real power behind the deck.
Yeah, I'd have to review it, but I think the idea is you get Zizor down, he starts force draining like mad, and then
there's a movement thing there too that you exploit. Something that happens in the movement phase. Anyhow, we'll find out. That can be our homework. Find out how it works. Because there's a few of the boys that got Black Sun decks.
And a lot of it is shaped by perception of what the light side decks are likely to be. That they're what you do with any. I think it does feel like for the classic Novi format, decks which have a lot of flexibility and a number of different ways of being played to respond to different kind of threats from the opponent are really the top decks. A deck that is focused on one thing is likely to run into some problems and run into some counters
Yeah.
in a tournament, especially.
Well, I mean, I guess the biggest thing is the Black Summit deck I played is the only one I found with not just a deck list, but here's the deck list, here's what the cards do, here's what you want to do,
Yeah.
and it and a lot of I've had a look at some of the decks from the recent GAMP event, the charity classic Novi. I was looking at some of the top 8 and it's just a deck list, and it's like, okay, like
Don't give anything away. Yeah.
like okay, I know what the cards are in my pile. I don't know how to turn pile into deck, if that makes sense. Because it's you can put cards in a pile. It doesn't make it a deck unless you know what you're doing. Unless you know what your objective is, you know what you want to do. You know how to achieve that. That's, to me, that's the difference between a pile and a deck. Is that coherency?
Is it? Do you have issues with that too, Toby? Like trying to find your cards that you need, that you know in your deck, and trying to manipulate it around so you can draw it up if you can.
Understanding how a deck is supposed to play and how it's supposed to win, I think is a challenge for me. I think the only way to learn that is by playing, because there aren't a whole lot of resources online explaining how
There used to be there was a website called Deck Tech, and the players would provide very intricate strategy articles. They don't do.
I think I've seen some of those here.
A lot of the players provide really well explained descriptions of how their decks work. That was really good Deck Tech, good old Deck Tech. But now they just provide decks, which I think is fun because you work out yourself how I've got the experience at least to understand what they're trying to do, except for Black Sun. But eventually I'll work out how it's done. But then I find the CCG videos helpful too, when the commentators Dan T and Deadbody and Eddie explain what the decks do. Their tips, well, they're not always their commentary on the play are helpful, but their tips and tidbits are really helpful in giving you insights of how you should look and approach decks.
Well, I mean, I think. Sorry, go ahead, Toby.
Oh no, I just learn better from reading stuff than from watching stuff, so it's tricky for me.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find the card engine because they don't seem to exist anymore, where you can get whole printed set lists and the text with it. I can't seem to find them anymore because it's really hard to work out using the card search and SWCCGPC and the game, because they don't tell you when you're playing the format play. You need to know what decks are legal and the old card engines I used to find more useful than the big massive one shot and all you got to do is name the cards. So I need to find the card engine. So if someone can help, write in the comments.
Yeah. But the other thing I find difficult is it seems like Classic Novi is kind of a niche format. because
I don't think it's all that popular. Or yeah,
like even because I remember in the Facebook group I posted that playlist from that YouTube content creator had a lot of deck lists. Most of their deck lists are classic to what's it, Revolution 2 or Classic R2.
Reflections too. Reflections too.
Reflections 2.
Are there other are there other formats that you guys are going to play? Because I guess me, Toby, and Big Pete are going to branch out and play Premier, SR2, Classic Novi again, all the cipher cards. I guess we're going to join those events. Is that right, boys?
Yeah, I think they're going to be fairly.
I'm not sure
I
if
think
they're going to be able to play Boom Race, Big Pete. I think they're going to ban racing.
Aren't they going to
ban pod racing?
They're going to ban Senate decks and pod racing. I think. Maybe not. You might be lucky. Yes, Scott Lingerell, your Boom Race deck is famous even here because it won the 2002 New Zealand Championship. your famous Boom Race deck. Shout out to all the ex-champions that I've followed over the years. Justin Desai, Johnny Q, Joe Olsen, Bastian Winkelhouse. So I'd like to say hello to those guys. They've been influential in my way of thinking about Star Wars too. But here's something that I want to talk about is our monogram for Mon Calamari.
Holy shit, merch.
And yeah, it's our monogram. I offered to send it to the two American dudes that were interested in talking to us, but they wouldn't send me address, so
They'd have to
I
fight
guess you
over it.
probably thought I was dodgy, but sorry?
They'd have to fight over it, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they would have. Well, I offered, but they wouldn't give me a postal address because they were worried, probably because they were feared about being doxxed, and they didn't know who the hell I was. But this is what I was trying to send you was the other monogram of our group, and this is the Akbar version. I'm wearing the Radis version, but I'll get. This is really important because the red, the white, and the black, and the imperial coil. That's a part of our indigenous heritage from Aotearoa, New Zealand. So I'll get Professor Balls over here to explain it because it's a part of the connection to it's the indigenous flag of the Maori people of New Zealand. So it's their native flag, and there's a wee story to it, which is the term is rangatira tanga. So I'll get the professor here to explain that. The whole connection with the reservoir theme and our national heritage as well, which is part of our essential psychological makeup as well as a country, as a young country. So away you go, Professor.
Wait, that's me.
That'd be you.
Well, no,
You're the only professor around here, mate.
yeah. And New Zealand is like the United States or Australia or South Africa or like Canada. It was colonized by British settlers in France, just starting in the 1840s. Cut a long story short, which I probably should do. It is. I'm in the United States. It is quite late at night. The in the 20th century, or really the last 50, 55 years, it's a kind of political, cultural, linguistic revival of Maori's of Maori tikanga, so Maori ways of doing things, ways of life. The Maori were never gone from New Zealand. There was always a fairly substantial minority of people in New Zealand were Maori between the 1870s and the present. But as part of the political side of this revival, the Tino Rangatiratanga emblem is representing the core relationship between people and the land in New Zealand, in Aotearoa New Zealand.
Well said, well said.
And the I'd suggest people who are interested in this you can look it up online to see the specific meanings of the colors and of the symbols here. But this is about thinking about what the reality of living and being in New Zealand is, the reality of the relationship between people and the land, and between people and other people.
Just to get in there for a quick second, the embroiderer of the badge is our craftsman, Big P. And what I found really clever about is how we use the imperial coil to incorporate the Star Wars lore into something as indigenous as that. But there's also the lore tie-in with the Maori race with Kimura Morrison being the Zango Fett template. So there's an old joke in New Zealand. Oh, all the clone troopers, they're fucking hories, which is an old nickname for the name of the Maori race. Not a disparaging one, but is it disparaging, Corey? Word hoary?
I would have thought.
Clone troopers are Maoris. Clone troopers are Maoris or Zango Fett template. The Maori DNA. So that's our New Zealand joke and our connection with the Star Wars lore. So what I thought was clever and that too. There's a whole baggage of ties with Star Wars lore and Once Were Warriors. I'll get you guys to work it out. But what I found clever is really love the work of Peter's embroidery work, especially using the Imperial coil. I didn't even know it was called Imperial coil, that wee little cog. I didn't know that was really cool, but a great work. And I'm very proud to support the badge. And you Americans should have taken up the offer, but you miss out.
It's got the ripple. It's got
First
ripple.
First one to provide me address in the comments below gets it. But you two other dudes, you miss out, bro.
I will pop the wiki link for the Tino Rangatiratanga flag in the description.
Excellent, my brother. I love it how we use the Māori law because of our heritage. Because fuck it, man, I'm using our heritage and connecting it with something that I love and is important to me, which is Star Wars CCG. So I love the indigenous connection that we make with it.
Yeah.
You guys might make your own connections with it. And I love it how Ozzy just pronounced the words so eloquently. Well done, my brother.
Well, I mean, I don't look like it, but I am of Aboriginal descent, so I do have a sensitivity to the plight of First Nation peoples. I'm not white, I'm clear.
Yeah, so Big Peter's Tanga to Whenua, and I'm Samoan, so that's the biggest migrant group of New Zealand. And the two round eyes are the Palangi colonizer. You guys
I'm going to take this opportunity to claim my Bila Bila Nin Aboriginal tribal heritage.
Yeah, we take indigenous issues seriously down this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not sure how you do, but yeah. Anybody got any cool stories, Star Wars stories? I've got a couple.
I want to shout out my brother because even though he does not play card games, he was probably the single most important factor in me being into Star Wars. That and it's interesting that the core years of this game in like late 90s, early 2000s.
he's what I call and what he describes me as a believer.
Yeah.
He described me as a believer, and I love that term because you're a believer too. And yeah,
should try and drag him into playing. I'll talk to him tomorrow about.
You leave it up to you. Should teach him how to play.
Yeah. I'll see if we can do it.
Give us his Troy Donnelly story, Big Pete. Because I'm curious. I've been waiting all this for a month for something to do with Palpatine, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Just when Death Star 2 came out, it was like, I had to buy boxes of it. Because everyone had to have a Palpatine. And I got 2. That was all really. Just flipped 2 Palpatines and traded a ton of cards to Troy.
I never bought much Death Star 2, and I didn't buy many. I didn't own many Palpatines or Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight. But although I was given 2 of each about 10 years ago from old friends who'd given up, so I love those cards. Six Destiny, man, that shit rocks.
Yeah. Another reason why they're in here.
But I'll tell you what, the cool. Hey, Umbra, where you gone? What's the origin of Umbra?
Orange.
There's a motive orange.
It's just an edgy way to say darkness. Umbra.
Oh, Frankie.
Okay.
I don't know. Everything seems fine on my end. Looking at the podcast is.
No, you're okay. You're back on. What's your background? It looks really. Is it all your Star Wars collection stuff?
His background's at X-Wing.
Sure.
No, it still feels like a TIE fighter.
It's an X-Wing.
That's what I thought.
You can see R2 over there.
Oh, yeah.
Aaron Sunderfeld. All right. Now listen, here's a cool story, okay? Shout out Paul Monk. He's one of the original members of the Star Wars group now. When he was doing his fitter and turner apprenticeship, we have student loans here, and he had an overdraft on maybe $3,000 or $4,000. He spent his overdraft buying the life-size Han Solo in carbonate. That cost about $3,000 or $4,000 New Zealand dollars. Did you know that, Big P? He spent his student overdraft on it, and it sits in his garage.
Probably at the time when he bought it, yeah.
Your garage and get it into the lounge.
Yeah, I shall return.
Sorry?
He still got his cards, he told me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because he recently wanted to play, so he's the only one that's playing over the table. Big Aaron, you know what Big Aaron told me recently? He sold his collection, including my cards.
Oh.
So he sold his collection. I couldn't believe that. I never thought I'd see the day when he'd sell his collection. Because he's like one of the freaks like him and you and Paul Monk, and I could never see you selling your cards, but I was surprised that Big Aaron sold his cards.
Yeah. Things happen.
So, yeah. So we have a Mon Calamari League has its own tournament. So there's about 8 of us, and we play each other a commitment of 1 game per month. So we do a half a round per month. So we're only playing 2 rounds, which is 4 games. So our tournament will be finished in March, and then we'll probably join up into the GEMP events, which is Death Star 2, Premier Death Star 2. You guys in? You guys play that with me, or am I going to be the only one that goes? Because I've already changed. I think I've got about
like more people.
Yeah.
Oh. You meaning the foreigners joining us? I don't know.
I don't know.
It depends. I guess.
See what sort of.
Well, I think Colin and Rowan are interested in joining up again. So
Yeah, more the merrier, more the
we'll
merrier.
deal with
I'm
that
not here to worry
when
about
it comes to
collecting
it.
cards. Helps a ton.
Yeah, you can just in the GIF you can just click on Emperor Palpatine 4 times, and all of a sudden he's there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just the one, 3 or 2 boxes.
they're not being playsets is wild to me. Because every other game I've had, the fact that there's not a playset is wild. So like Yu-Gi-Oh, you can have frig. What is the playset for Yu-Gi-Oh? Yu-Gi-Oh's 2. UFS was 4. UFS was 3. Magic, you can have 4 of a card.
Okay. Yeah.
Star Wars,
Okay.
how many times you click the button? That's how many you can have.
That's what makes it unique.
Snow
That's what
Speeders.
makes it unique.
It's interesting.
Yeah, Snow Speeders.
Like the Watch Your Step decks I played have,
Snow Speeders.
like the Watch Your Step.
No, they don't have more. They don't. Less so these days, but Snow Speeders definitely click how many times. But you got to be careful of the Monarch and the Grimtage. That's the problem. That's the
Well, I remember
cards, and even then you're not safe.
I remember the last time I played you, Chris. I threw down Palpatine in an outdoor area, and next minute he's facing down. What was it? 5 Snow Speeders and an A-wing. Shit.
Yeah, Johnny Chu.
Ewoks.
I think the original of the deck was Clint Hayes, I think. I don't know. Somebody in the comments will tell me. But I know I love that idea. Toby doesn't approve of it that much, but I think
no,
it's a considered approach because there's a risk that you take playing those sorts of decks. I've got a real weakness because in the day I played T47s with local uprising like Clint Hayes did, so I love that
like
deck.
it.
But
I like it when it's like 10 Ewok Scout. Oh, Ewok Spear. No, Scouts.
yeah, I know what a pain in the ass that deck. But I guess my 2 favorite decks that I've played, answering my answer to the question I asked before, 2 best decks I ever played before we stopped playing was WAP and K-Dot Dark Senate. They were brilliant decks. And they're probably my most favorite decks. They were the best decks I ever played. Probably Scott Lindgrell's Boom Race as well. So, yeah. I just thought I'd add in there. You guys are too new to have favorite decks, and Big P's too much of an individualist to have a favorite deck. The quirk off me that catches you out or every time.
That's right.
How long have we been going for, Everett? Have we gone through a fair amount of time?
About 80 minutes.
It's not bad, really, just spilling off the top of our heads first. I did write a list of what I wanted to talk about. We've covered what I wanted to cover, especially the Indigenous connection with Mon Calamari. So I'm just wondering what the response will be with the Star Wars community. Maybe some hate, maybe some love. But
I mean,
if they provide another perspective of Star Wars players from another part of the world, I think that was Large Pork's idea. But yeah, so
yeah, definitely,
really.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed learning more about the history of both the group and of the game.
Absolutely.
In Auckland and around the world.
Yeah, because nobody's ever heard of the House Street group, but essentially what we are is the House Street group, which is a group of all my old friends from all different circles and all different games banded together. And when I moved to House Street, and this became the permanent group, the House Street Gaming Group. So yeah, very proud to be associated with that group.
Yeah, a lot of good times on House Street. I still remember to this day Paddle Wars.
Metal Wars? What the
Uh,
hell's that?
it's a rule set we came up with for Soul Calibur 2. So you
Oh, okay.
so you so what it is, it's you set the stage to the zero friction stage. Hit points to infinite, time limit to infinite, and only the joke weapons are allowed. Which is the reason it's called Paddle Wars, because ironically the best character in the format is Nightmare with his sword down paddle.
Truly, this is the great minds of New Zealand gaming coming together in this place.
No, I've always
That actually sounds pretty. That sounds pretty cool.
Actually. Some of the finest minds in New Zealand.
Yeah, you just
part of that group, and
yeah, Paddle Wars. Like me and Chris's old roommate sat up for about 3 hours, fucking just giggling our heads off at Paddle Wars. Because you you barely get breathed on and you get ring out.
Well, hopefully we've given a good account of ourselves, of our Star Wars community from this part of the world, which became active again in 2004 September, and I'm glad I did it, because I'm not going to forget the people, and I'm not going to forget the game. So
yeah,
greetings everybody from Aotearoa, New Zealand. So that's us. You think we should call it a day now without going too over the mark? Because we're dealing with 3 different time zones. We've got an American time zone, me with the UK time zone, and the New Zealand time zone. But I appreciate you guys coming and helping out. I've never done a podcast before, so it's been a great experience. You were saying, Big Pete?
Oh, what time is it there now, Toby?
2 p.m. 2 a.m. 2 a.m.
2 a.m. early in the morning.
Yeah.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy. We can go for another 2 hours.
Medication. Okay, so like and subscribe.
Yeah, no, so that's
Yeah.
Good one, brother.
Yeah.
So thank you guys. I appreciate it, and greetings to the rest of the world from our corner of the world.
Yeah. Does anyone have anything they want to plug? Anything they want to? Because it's
more importantly, do you have anything to plug?
I mean, twitch.tv/Uncle Cranky, twitter.com/Uncle Cranky, youtube.com/@Uncle Cranky. Like, comment, subscribe, perform all algorithm required activities.
Hopefully we see you on game. You give it another shot.
Yeah.
Give it time, brother.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for.
Because you're a really competent gamer, so I just think it's sad that you're not involved. For me, it was a heartbreak that you're not involved.
I just need to find the right deck. The slow, grindy asshole deck that makes you want to strangle me.
Yeah, like Zangief. Oh my god! What?
Zangief was my compromise with the Orkla meta. It's like, if you want to go fast, I'm going to see how fucking fast I can go.
Yeah, and the Gorlava was a 6-hand size. Oh.
Anyway.
Anyhow, no, my brothers.
Have a good week, everyone.
Okay.